Okay, topics in protection. So the next topic, as I chew my milk duds, is purity and protection. I'm
Mm.
sticky and I'm impure. Okay, so
Mm.
first of all, we're going to talk about like theoretical stuff. So Mary
Mm.
Douglas is like this like author who talks about wrote this book called Purity and Danger, and
Mm.
she was talking about ritual cleanliness.
Mm.
So, and her idea, so ritual cleanliness is like how you have to take like a mikvah, which is like a ritual bath after like having your period, or for a number of reasons. Like in the
Mm.
Jewish tradition, it's about like people becoming ritually impure for a variety of reasons. That's just one example.
Mm.
So it's not kind of what we would think about purity, but purity is about protection. Purity is about protecting the in group. It's about protecting the social order. She would say that like anomalies or things outside the society and the group, the in group, are threatening and they are thought of as dangerous. And so we were even part of a group where I feel like some of this like purity and danger and like was centered around hierarchies and around like even in like the witchcraft community, like the 3 degrees of like who has the most knowledge and who's like
Mhm.
bowing to who and who can call themselves a witch and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
These are like ritual cleanliness. This is like about purity and protecting the social order. Who's a pure witch? Who's like a pure coven member, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's even like kind of looking at our like my experience personally. But
Yeah.
there's that this is not like this happens in many, many, many groups where there's like an in group. So like anything that's different is going to be threatening. So also the idea that she brings up is that what is perceived as impure, it changes. It changes
Mhm.
across time, it changes across cultures. So there's no like standard of purity that's the same everywhere. There's no like set standard of purity. Like this is variable. This depends on the group you're in. Like we just talked about a set of purity standards that varied very differently than perhaps like what are they called? Like those I'm gonna be those people that are like take those virginity pledges or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like as to
Yeah.
be pure or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were talking about a very different like standard of like in group, out group, pure, impure kind of thing for
Mhm.
ritual cleanliness. So but the rituals like and the things that like these groups are doing not only to maintain purity, but also within their group, their rituals are how they maintain their boundaries, like who's in the in group and who is in the out group. So it's a
Mhm.
matter of boundary maintenance. So that's like one type of purity, this like ritual cleanliness and this thing that like Mary Douglas talks about. So, like non-moral ritual purity. And like I said, some people say that witches don't really do moral purity, but I'm not I think they do. I think this like what is that other thing that like guardian like oh what is that word? Like gatekeeping,
Mm.
like there's like a whole mess of like shit that like I think witches do that's like moral gatekeeping and moral ritual cleanliness. Like
Yeah.
what's available to who and what's and
Yeah.
doing what, and there's a lot of like judgment about like the your like relative rightness and wrongness in what you do witchy, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah.
even though
I
like
al-
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say I completely agree. And to tap it, like to add on to that, I think I find it a lot in people who are like lineage witches or
Mm.
whatever, like, oh, I'm by blood, like, oh, my parents were. It's like, who cares? Who cares? Like, really, come on. Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so funny because like it's so funny because like quite after the fact, like some women in my family told my dad that they were all witches.
Nice.
Because he was saying Rachel thinks she's a witch. She considers
Yeah.
herself a witch. Like, what is Rachel's religion right now? She's
Yeah.
a witch, is what she
Yeah.
considers
And
herself.
all the women are like, yeah, us
We
too.
all are exactly like, oh, good, she's in the family. Like we've all
Yeah.
like
Oh
that's
my God.
of course that's what your sister and your all
Yeah.
the like whatever. It's so funny.
Oh
I was
God.
laughing my head off when
So
he told me
funny.
that.
Mm,
So non-moral ritual purity. So becoming pure in magic could mean that ritual purity shifts consciousness and signals to the unseen world, I'm entering sacred territory, nothing harmful may cross this line. So, like, that's like what's talking about. Like, the purity could be that boundary or that protective circle that we set up that says that nothing that's not witchy can come through, or
mm,
like, not, it's not about morals, it's just about like creating this boundary of like whatever. I don't want people who are like whatever in my space. Like there's
yeah.
like, I like sameness. I like I eat the same things every day. I like clear cut just directions, like all those things. And I want to maintain non-ritual purity by saying that like no like vague stupid people can come into my if you're giving me vague directions and I'm setting that purity boundary. So
Mm,
anyway, and so it looks like cleansing. So we set up cleansing before protection because it's connected deeply. So if that's what non-ritual moral purity kind of looks like. It's like that getting stuff out of my space that doesn't belong here. It's not
hmm
necessarily about ritual cleanliness. It's more about like sweeping away the stuff that doesn't belong. So, regardless of what type of purity we're talking about, whether it's moral purity or non-moral purity, like there's a threat to something that's impure, whether it's like something that just doesn't belong in your space and that's why you're protecting against it. Like it's a threat. Like this
hmm
impurity is a threat. And purity, like, or like creating like a sacred safe space or protecting your home, like that sense of like protected purity equals safety. So, moral impurity. So, if we look at moral impurity, impurity is equals disorder, and the threat is contamination, chaos, and social instability. So, that like when if you're talking about that moral impurity that we were talking about like in the beginning, like when that kind of stuff breaks down, like that's the kind of stuff that you are listening to. Like you're like I said, like that hierarchy starts breaking down. There's social instability. If you like let people like maneuver out of like their hierarchy or out of the like the set space that talks about, then there's like contamination. Sometimes that wouldn't be in like witchy circles, but it might be even like if you talk to certain people, or I mean, like I really think that witches and I think all groups engage in some moral purity versus impurity. I don't think witches are immune from that. And when you protect, if you do protection to protect the moral purity, you like are restoring those symbolic boundaries of like who's in the in group, who's in the out group. You're protecting the coven, you're protecting the whatever, the witch group, you're protecting whatever, whoever group that you think you're the in group, like, or that you feel like somebody's like violating your group, like by doing protection, that's what you're maintaining is you're restoring these boundaries. So, witchcraft and impurity. So, impurity for just witches, if we're not talking about this hierarchical kind of covenant impurity stuff, like impurity is all about like energetic influences that aren't yours. Or like it could be like even if you think like spiritual influences that aren't yours, or even other entities, if that's what you think, that aren't yours. So that if they aren't of you, so the threat to you, then, if they are getting in, if you have like energy that's getting in your spiritual space, right? And it doesn't belong to you or other things, the threat is spiritual intrusion, psychic residue, malefic intention. Like that's why I would do like a mirror spell, is because if somebody had malefic intention, like I would be just mirroring it right back at them, their malefic intention. So and then cleansing, protection would look like cleansing, warding, sovereignty, protection rituals, pulling tarot cards, all these things. So then, in that respect, purity, for sure, purity is about boundary making. For sure, purity, when you're talking about purity, whether it's moral or other types of purity, it's always about creating boundaries and maintaining social and emotional and personal boundaries. So, finally, to recap this whole conversation about purity, like purity, when you talk about whatever you're talking about, it, whether you're talking about your home or you're talking about the group, purity marks the threshold. And thresholds are always like dangerous liminal spaces. They're potent. They're filled with possibility and danger. Like they're always, that's why you put things, we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about thresholds and we're going to talk about that. So, protection rituals stabilize that space. So, putting a a burdock like bouquet above your door to for protection stabilizes that liminal space of your threshold to your home. That space of like going, I always say that like a doorway erases your memory. So just think about how many times you walk from one room to the other and you completely forget why you're there. It's because it's like you're going through a liminal space. You're going through a threshold. Those are like important spaces. So, and protection rituals stabilize those spaces. So, purity gives coherence so that your power can flow like cleanly. So, and purity can be a little bit of a loaded word because we're so used to talking about like purity packs and all that shit.
That's why, yeah, I have kind of a problem, not a problem, but it's hard for me to think about purity in like the non like Judeo-Christian meaning.
Yeah, because it's loaded, because it's like
Yeah.
co-opted and loaded. That word
Yeah.
is definitely loaded. But you could just think of it more in like a looser sense. Like it's about like keeping your spit cleansing. It's about cleansing. Like why
Yeah,
that's
that's kind of how I do it. I think about like cleaning, right? Like
yeah.
when I'm like purifying, let's say my like ritual space, I'm like my mind is okay, I'm getting rid of anything that's not me. So like the purity is like my energy. It's not like
Exactly. That's
holy
where it is.
energy.
You
Yeah.
got it perfectly.
Yeah.
So now you can, that's how your power can flow best, is when you are like you perform these protection things and you've cleansed and you do all that, banish, cleanse, protected, and then your power, it's to allow your power to flow cleanly. And having things impure, whether no matter what you're talking about, like if you're talking about like prior to a cleansing or whatever, it threatens things because it blurs boundaries, is what it does. So, very interesting stuff.